Well, I want to get on with another silver update real quick, and this probably ain't going to be quick because I'm never freaking that short anymore. I could talk quite a bit, but I read a lot, so like I like to present what I read and my twist on things because I think I give a unique twist versus so many other guys out there. Now, this I'm going to actually go into some of the beefs I have with some of the silver bloggers out there because it's okay to make money on stuff. Actually, I don't like actually, I won't be doing these silver videos if I felt that there was some generally good information out there by the silver bloggers. I wouldn't be doing these. I'd be sticking with the health, the mechanical videos, construction, how-to, and that type of stuff because I realize, those help people in a real way, and I like doing those. But, I realize I have to be on here because I'm totally vehemently disagreeing with a lot of people that are on there for the silver channels and stuff like that. And I don't like what they're selling, to tell you the truth. I'm going to make up this, I'm going to actually give you this point. I know that the people in Goldman Sachs, you heard them say, like, they thought of their clients as idiots and stuff, and they just, use them up, basically. But, that's not really the situation. If you're in an investment firm or you're a broker, you got to make money for your client, or else you ain't in business. You might be doing that a little bit, and there might be some people doing it, but that's not the general trend. So actually, you got J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs and all that. I know that sometimes these things get set up on people, but for the most part, they got to make the clients money. They're on the line. Their ass is on the line for it too. In the case of being a silver blogger, you are putting out investment advice, and you're actually putting it out to a lot of people who their main or only investment is silver, physical silver. So that's you got a real responsibility to be accurate, and I don't see these guys as being accurate. I see them as a lot of times as being very amateurish. Now, the one I like the best for technical analysis, and I think he's very accurate, but he doesn't bet in the markets, is Endless Mountain. He's actually been very accurate. I'm surprised that channel isn't a lot bigger, but I don't know. I mean, that's just people, I don't know what the deal is, but to me, he's actually been pretty damn accurate. So, what can I say? But let me just get on with some other things here because I'll go on with one thing I think is a major beef. This is Wehrmacht hyperinflation in Germany, 1923. There's like a bigger chart, and this is like a real generic historical BS chart from when, of historical event that occurred back then. Now, actually, you can go back a little ways. You can see it went up, then it went down, and then it went into hyperinflation. Like, we actually went into this temporary deflationary period, and I was stating last year that this was a temporary deflationary period. We're going to start seeing things cooking hard with food prices, energy prices, and gold and silver. But, I'm going to give you an example, and this is why I don't have a problem with this guy personally, but I'm going to tell you that this guy is actually, I think, giving some people pretty bad advice sometimes. Like, for instance, BJF or SGT or whatever the hell it is. And I saw this like a couple times. I used to follow this guy before, but I don't anymore. But once in a while, I'll pop in and take a look at what the hell he's got to say. But, BJF, a couple times I noticed he said, advise people in his question and answer period. And, I'm actually getting annoyed at this stuff because it's like, I don't like the way, I'm not getting annoyed at him. I'm getting annoyed at the fact that I think the middle class is being steered wrong here. Big time. Big time. And it's like, in Weimar Republic, for instance, say this thing was sitting around 1600 and that represented some kind of price for gold or some garbage, right? And then you sold it in September at 10 million. Well, if you held on to it, this is BJF's analysis, if you held on to it, you would have been wiped out, right? But, this is my advice. If you get crazy gains, and first off, Weimar Republic is not the same as the U.S. One reason they went into hyperinflation is because they had no way to sell their debt on the international market. The U.S. is not going to be in that situation. If the U.S. becomes in that situation, we're probably going to be taken over by another country like China or some crap like that with physical arms. So you're not even going to be worrying about silver. If we come to the situation where we're in a Weimar Republic and we're like a nothing, the U.S. is actually going to be like under some other control of some other nation. And if you have silver then, you're going to be basically going to the gulag and you're giving up your silver, okay? I mean, that's the situation. So we're not getting into this situation. If we do, you better be ready to freaking fight back and shoot the bastards, okay? That's what I'll say to that. But let me point out, even if we go to a situation where there's a lot of inflation and you guess the price wrong, you sell and you buy another asset. You always have to look at what the essentials are. Food is number one. You know, actually in times of hyperinflation, tools are actually very important too. You know, food and guns and ammunition, that type of stuff, right? So you want to make sure you, and also paying everything you have up ahead. Like if you have your electric bill, go pay it 1 year ahead or some crap or whatever, 6 months ahead. Pay your bills way ahead. I always do this too. I always pay all my bills way ahead and have reserves. Now, the point is, I'm saying is, you know, even, I'm going to give you an example too with what a guy who does in business. Do you think they just sell assets and they hold on to cash forever? Hell no. They don't hold, it's very temporary. Most of the businesses are actually cash poor. A lot of them are. Like for instance, say somebody got this franchise and they were selling some product out there and they built it up and it went up 10 times and then they sold the business. You think this guy's going to just hold dollars? No, hell no. There'll be another investment out there. You know, that's usually how they, Goldman Sachs will come by and say, yeah, we got an investment for you, right? Here you go. But, you know, I get a little annoyed at these silver bloggers because, a lot annoyed actually at a lot of them, because they remind me of Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, only they're worse. They really don't have a fiduciary responsibility to any client they talk to on YouTube. I don't either. You know? But I'm being flat out, well, let me put it this way. I think I've been around long enough to know, and I have some pretty good common sense, and I've been around, you know, the entrepreneur, the predator type owner-predator that, you know, I built a lot of those guys up, period. It was my efforts, my instincts. So I'm telling you, if you start seeing some crazy gains on silver, it's time to sell on some steps. I'm overly bullish on the metal, and I'm more likely going to hold it too long also. But I'm sure not going to be holding a whole pile of it at the very top. See, that's another flaw of the reasoning of a lot of silver bloggers, is that they expect a reset of the currency. There may be one. And that seems to be the way things are being planned, that all the currencies will go down and we'll have a global currency. But we don't really necessarily know for a fact that the dollar will be dead completely. Like, in other words, the British pound lost its global reserve currency status back in the 30s, I believe it was. But it's still around. What I think is going to happen is the currencies are going to be around for a long time. The dollar is going to be around for a long time, too. And it's going to be, there's going to be a global reserve currency, an international currency. Besides, it's just that the world reserve currency status that the dollar has right now is going to be lost. That, I think, is a given. So, now I want to point out something else, because this is something else I have a beef with a lot of alternative media. And this was on News Unit Blogspot. He's very good. He's a good alternative media. He's true alternative media versus a lot of snake oil alternative media. It's like within the alternative media, you got the big bucks bullshit out there. And, I always call these, we should tear them up. Anyway. He goes on here, this is, news media, the News Unit, tearing up Alex Jones. Send Alex Jones more money. It's all about money after all, and indeed it is. But you remember, remember, you don't need your money. Just give it to Alex Jones or your church and the government so you can please God. Is God a money god? That's something like George Carlin used to say, too, One thing about God, he always needs money, right? And, this is one thing sometimes I get turned off about, the Jesus message. It's not Jesus, it's some of the people that are pushing it. They're all out for number one. They're not practicing what Jesus said. They're freaking bunch of scam artists, And also remember, he's got some cool stuff on here. Also remember, Lindsey Williams praises Alex Jones and tells him he's been anointed by the providence of God. Yeah, this guy is good because he's a very true alternative voice, and he's calling out the snake oil, and he's actually religious himself. Okay, so he's not knocking Jesus, he's not knocking God, but he's knocking the guys that are pushing Jesus and God for their own personal benefit. And there's a lot of them around. So anyway, just beware of the problem that you may face if silver goes to, say, it's not a problem, but it would be a problem if the silver went to $400 an ounce, and all the advisors out there and the experts in the silver world are telling you it's going to $1,000, it's going to be worth more than gold, and it goes back down to $100. I don't know if that's the absolute fact, but like I said, not everybody is going to sell right at the top. That's bullshit. And I'm going to say right now that most people are going to be misled by the experts in the silver world, the self-proclaimed question and answer experts in the silver world, because let me put it this way. Only 1% is 1% because that's a definition. Not everybody's going to be able to sell at the exact top. No way in hell. No way in hell. And I'm going to point out something else that a lot of people in the silver world don't like. Let's say, for instance, all the silver in the world just disappeared. Some aliens came down from Mars and stole it all. I mean, I'm just making up something, right? Say it all just disappeared. Do you think the world would stop? Hell no. Because necessity is the mother of invention, right? It's like you find a way around anything. If you don't have something available anymore, there's a way to get around it. And see, this is the other thing with these expectations that, silver's going to go to like $1,000 an ounce or $400 an ounce in real dollars. I think it could due to like a middle class panic. In my case, if I sold at, the exact high, I realized I would have made money off the rest of the middle class. That's where I would have made my money, off of other people's mistakes. That's exactly what would happen. But if silver goes up that high, I want to point out that there's such a thing as demand destruction. God, I swear I know people don't like hearing this stuff because it's like, well, some people do, some people realize it. It's like even if all the copper in the world disappeared, I mean, how the hell would you make electrical lines, There'd be another way. They'd find a way. They'd use aluminum or something. It would be crappier stuff, but it would work, They'd have to change capacitors or whatever. They'd have to change something around. But you can do it. You could price something out of the market. Actually, if you look, and this is like 1 + 1 = 2 stuff. If you look deep into, what people say in the silver, in the mining industry, it could be platinum, palladium, or whatever it is, they're all worried about excessively high prices because they realize they want steady revenue. They don't want to be priced out of the market. This can happen with anything, period, no matter how essential it is, even silver. So I want people to realize that. So, I want the middle class to guess better what the hell the top is going to be in this thing. And obviously right now, even $45 an ounce silver is way too low, okay? I'm going to wind up holding this stuff too long, too, because I'm overly bullish on this metal. Now, if we're going into a couple tidbits on what happened in the markets here recently here, the S&P downgraded Spain to triple B minus from triple B plus. So Spain's going down. Now, there's anticipated that there might be a lot more unrest in Spain and it could spread to Europe. And actually, Switzerland is bracing for widespread unrest in Europe. So there goes your Chinese market, Hey, I want to get on to something about China here in a second. Chinese, not just this, but Chinese yuan rose to its highest level against the US dollar in 19 years. That's been expected. It's not moving up as fast as we thought it should be, but because the dollar was supposed to be 40% down this year, as it is supposed to be down 40% every year. But the Chinese money is going to actually appreciate in value. And then another bullish sign for palladium and platinum, especially platinum, striking gold miners, even though it says gold miners, it's all those mines in South Africa reject the final offer. So they still got, and then it just saw that story a couple weeks ago, 12,000 miners, platinum miners and gold miners were fired for illegally striking You know, this is after everything was all ironed out. So obviously things aren't ironed out. Now I want to point out about platinum and palladium real quick that platinum and palladium have had record demands in 2011, and they actually had to take out a stockpile. I said this before for both those metals. 2012 is going to have even more higher record demand, all-time record demand for both platinum and palladium. And there's strikes going on in South Africa. Now, there's any more interruption to supplies, and there's problems in South Africa where the trucking industry is on strike, which actually affects how fuel is being delivered to the remote areas where the mines are, because mining is a very energy-intensive endeavor. You have to truck in diesel to mine. So, actually, I bet pretty good on platinum and palladium. I didn't buy them at the right exact time, the lows, but they're up now finally. I think eventually, this is probably going to sound like a crazy statement, but and I say this is a number 2 investment. I see silver as number 1 for now. Palladium is probably going to be worth more than gold at one point in time, but it's got disadvantages because you can't use it like money the way silver is. So that's one of the problems with it. But as far as probably giving you the most return for all of the precious metals, palladium at one point in time is going to be stellar beyond belief. It is. It's going to be very good. Now, as far as some of the outlook that goes on with the IMF is predicting more big downturn in 2013. They're looking at, and you talk about the fiscal cliff coming. I know it's a big 2-word thing to describe everything that's coming up with the budget cuts, the automatic tax increases and stuff for the government, and in 2013 if they don't iron out the budgets. But the IMF is also talking about global slowdown. Mark Farber, Jim Rogers talking about global slowdown, and they've been talking for quite some time about the hard landing in China. Not that China's going under, but that's going to affect everything. So, I kept saying, I don't know this for a fact, but this is what I'm going to do. If I see silver creep up to like over $60, $70, 60 to 75 in that range, by early 2013, I am even selling some physical. I probably should sell all physical and try to speculate and buy it back, but I'm not doing that. My adjective on that is some small portion thereof, because I think it's going to pull back hard, and I said this a bunch of times. But, beware of, some of the hyperinflationary scenarios and some of the other scenarios we have out there of some extreme silver prices, because if you hold on to this metal too long, you're going to be SOL, period. And silver is not your only savior. Well, it's like, actually, this is more of a speculative bet. And what actually is going to save the planet, more than anything, if I could think of one commodity that could save the planet, it's going to be hemp. Both industrial hemp and medicinal marijuana. That one commodity will save the planet. Not silver so much. Silver's going to do a lot of good. I mean, you can make colloidal silver out of it and all that type of stuff. Cure all kinds of diseases with it, despite they say they can't. But, to us right now, investing in silver coins, it is more a speculative bet. And I don't want to see people on the other side of the cliff, because you know what happens with silver. Despite not wanting it to happen and not wanting to believe it's going to happen, every time this damn metal goes up, creeps up, it takes a long time, it's doing great, it hits a cliff. So, you might be selling a little too early. Maybe if you sold some at 60, I'm throwing a guess out there, maybe it's going to go to 80. I don't know, before it crashes, right? Let's say that happened. You'd be kicking yourself for selling at 60, but then maybe it'll go to 80 and go down below 50, right? I mean, it ain't going to go to 26 or 30, but probably go below 50, So, that's what I'm saying. No, you're not going to hold on to fiat cash. Just like I stated before, it could be, this is the way business has been going like for decades and decades and decades. Even when there was like, everything was in gold and the money was backed by gold. A business doesn't just sit on cash. Doesn't just sit on gold. it goes into the next venture. So if you make a lot of money on silver, plan your next move accordingly. And if you're a person that's just trying to survive day to day, buy food, buy tools, buy ammunition, buy guns, whatever. Buy stuff you need. Buy stuff you need. Pay your bills ahead of time. That type of stuff. So don't get caught on the other end of the hyperbolic curve. And the Wehrmacht Republic scenario more than likely is not going to apply to the United States. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. But in any case, if silver went up that high, food's going to be that high. So take your pick. What do you really need? Food, right?